Greetings, folks, and good afternoon to those of us who are joining us live from Facebook and YouTube through the channels of Thai PBS World and related Thai PBS channel. Please allow me to be the one to officially welcome you all to today's forum on Voices from the Frontline, Navigating the Future of Myanmar. Today's forum comes at a very critical point in history as Myanmar is about to enter its next electoral chapter underneath deep political instability. Of course, the world is watching through the eyes of those who are telling it from the ground. Journalists, academics, civil society voices, as well as media professionals. It is these voices that allow us to understand what might be waiting for us in the future. And we here at Thai PBS World are absolutely thrilled to have those voices with us today. So please allow me to introduce our panel of speakers. First of all, we have Kun Onrawi Tangmi Sang, or Kun Natty, independent journalist and social media creator behind Natty Loves Myanmar. She's a Thai communications professional, former journalist, and blogger with over a decade of experience in marketing communications, public relations, televisions, and print journalism. Next up, we have Associate Professor Surashani Si Yai, from a visiting fellow with the Media Technology and Society program at the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies, Yusof Ishak Institute. Next up, we have Kun To Saw-Lat, representing the Independent Press Council of Myanmar. He is a seasoned international media veteran and manager with 25 years of experience of the Myanmar media landscape. Next up, we have Kun Mon Mon Miet from the Democratic Voice of Burma. She is an independent journalist and senior management consultant for Democratic Voice of Burma, and she has experience working with various international news outlets. And last but not least, we have Kun So Mint of Mizima News. He is the award-winning Burmese journalist who has worked in media since 1992 in reporting, management, and training. We are all very honored to have all of you with us today. And as of now, I will be handing over the stage to Kun Thep Chai Yong, Executive Advisor of Thai PBS, who will be guiding us through this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Suksot Chun, and good afternoon to our speakers, and good afternoon to the audience watching online. Today we are talking about an election whose result is a foregone conclusion. We know exactly who will win the election. The junta in Naypyidaw keeps telling the world that it's going to be a free and fair election that should lead to national reconciliation. But unfortunately, members of the international community see a totally different picture. Human rights organizations, Western governments, and independent observers see the election nothing more than a sham designed to legitimize the continuation of the dictatorship in Myanmar. For 4 years now, in fact, it's more than 4 years that the military has been in power, and it has shown no sign of wanting to step back. And don't forget that the election will be taking place with all the credible or the real opposition parties having been dismantled. Aung San Suu Kyi and other democratic figures are still behind bars. And all the journalists who should be speaking about the truth about the election have been either banished or are also in jail. So we cannot say that the election is going to be free and fair. And of course, the word sham is the most appropriate word to use to describe this coming election. And I'm sure I'll be hearing a lot of this word from my speaker today. So today's discussion is certainly not about predicting the result of the election, of which the outcome we know. But we want to focus on what this election means to the future of Myanmar, the future of its people, the future of the national unity government, and the future of all the various ethnic communities in the country and on the fringe of the country. But more importantly, we also would like to touch on the very important aspect of this whole issue. That is how the world, the international community should respond to the election, and what kind of actions they should avoid to end up being seen as legitimizing the continuation of the dictatorship. So today we have 5 people with intimate knowledge of the countries and what the upcoming election will be like. I understand that each of you has your prepared remarks to start with. So each of you will have 8 to 10 minutes for remarks. But before we begin, Somin, what have your people on the ground in Myanmar been telling you about the people's mood in Myanmar? Their expectation, are they feeling excited or feeling just indifferent?
First of all, sorry, Kap. Yes, unfortunately, this is not going to be an election where people are eagerly voting for. Definitely, people are very worried, very concerned. Either someone who is in Yangon, Mandalay, such capitals, or someone who is in Sagaing and Rakhine, where the fightings and the war has been going on. People are very worried about this. People are especially struggling for their life.
Okay.
So this is not the issue where they are dear to, and this is not the issue where they are expecting from. That is what, and there are independent surveys already carried out that shows that more than 90% of the populations, wherever the surveys are done, both in the areas controlled by the Myanmar military or in the areas controlled by the different resistant groups, that shows that more than 90% of the people are not interested in the elections.
About Natty, your friends in the business circle.
So, of course, as recently, I have just I went to them in front of Myanmar embassy in Bangkok to witness the early voting. So, according to the unofficial information that I got from the embassy, was that over 700 people registered for the early voting. But then when I went there to observe for the second day, it's not even 100 people, or even both days, because the election took place for 2 days, the early voting. So both days, not even half of the registered people came to vote. So this clearly shows, I would say, the desire of the people, or the perception of the people toward what we call the sham elections, or even the business community. Of course, we have in Myanmar there are two groups of businesses: those with the ties and those who just want to survive. So of course those with the tie may go to vote to support to continue for their businesses. But then those maybe without the ties or who just want to survive may or may not go to vote. So this is what we see in the business community.
So it's nothing compared to the previous election in 2020, right?
No, very different.
Especially as far as the advanced voting is concerned. Okay, let's start with Toso Rattan. Your prepared remarks, please.
Oh, actually, when we talk about election, election are basically to consolidate democracy. But like you said, it is very much regarded as sham election. In legal term, I think EU Commission make very clear it is illegitimate election. It is every short of every aspect of democratic principle. Started from legal aspect or even the election commission. It's not independent. It is a major general running the show. And also in terms of free, fair, inclusive, none of these match. I think the most importantly, it is freedom from fear. When you ask what is the people today, regarding Myanmar election, what do they think? Actually, it is all about fear. Everybody don't want to take part in this election, and they are not interested because result is already no. It is the army that's going to win. Then why don't we bother going to a polling station to endorse it? But at the same time, there is very real fear that if you don't come and vote, then we are watching you. You are on the house registration list. This is the daily people life on the ground. That how can you run the election? There is a daily moment. Recently, there was one of the Indonesian event, Indonesian condemnation on the bombing of Miao Hospital. 33 people died, and also there was more than 78 people injured. None of the contested political party addressed these issues because there is a very real kind of draconian law that you cannot criticize army. That is the problem. If you criticize army, then you will go to jail. It's serious. There is a election prevention and protection law. If you criticize army, you go to 3 year to life sentence. Then even we don't see majority. Concern issue like forced conscription. which impact on around like 5-6 million Burmese youth, none of the party addressing. I mean, these are the issues that concerning the youth. Now, country like Burma, Myanmar, it is a country without youth because of these young people. I mean, mainly to Thailand. I think there is a lot of different conflicting number. How many Burmese in Thailand? 6 million, 7 million? I'm sure 6 to 7 million. There is some other saying 11 million. Okay. Mainly, a pattern of migration change. In the past, it is a migrant labor. Now it's very educated young people. I mean, fearing this, forced conscription. But which party addressing these kind of real issues? So I think, there is every aspect that there is short of, election. And also in terms of, we can go to the voter list or because the army took power, insisting that there was a fraud by Aung San Suu Kyi and the party. They are accusing 11 million voter list. Even voter list, 90 million people list are not on the voter registration list. They are also the same. They are not doing the same, even the voter list, it's not right there. Or starting from the legal aspect or election commission and also introducing new election machine, that voting machine that nobody really understands how to vote. And also, the result is already out there. Okay. So this is already knowing the winner. But my point is, it is the fear. Yes. The people has to be, really, if I don't go to vote, am I going to have a trouble? And people don't want trouble. We had enough trouble. Okay. This is not the same as previous conflict. Myanmar is not stranger to the conflict. We have more than 70 years of civil war. But this time, the extent of conflict, it is the Burma majority in the dry zone, everywhere. If you look at territorial control, Myanmar army only control 21%. Okay. 42% control by different various resistance group and 37% contested. What about people living in that area that not having an election? There is a 63 districts and martial law, or they can say that it is not inclusive or not nationwide election. It is phrase by phrase, first phrase, but it is, at the end, it's mean nothing, change nothing. But at least there will be only, the army uniform to civilian saying that we are elected government. Basically trying to legitimize themselves, and also their army main aim is to argue that the 2020 election result no longer relevant because we have a new election endorsed by Chinese and Russia and Belarus. That's what they want. So I think this is our main concern is about the people. We see recently recent silent strikes on the International Human Rights Day, 10 December. People, we still respect those unsung heroes. People always, whenever they get the chance, they were sure that we don't want army domination in our country. So I think, what is the point having the election? You already know the election result. But at the same time, our main concern is our majority of people has to be very scared that, if I don't vote, if I don't show up in election voting system, at the gunpoint, what will be the consequence? That is a majority concern. And also key concern like young people, we have a lot of brain drain. A lot of young people has to leave because of this, conscription law. And then, who is addressing the real issues on the ground? And also there are like social civil servants, like teachers, and they have to be forcibly election monitoring. And 2020 election, they use 150,000 school education staff and teachers. But now both sides, resistance also announcing if you support election, it is illegal. And they're saying if you disturb election, it is illegal. What about those who cannot say no to take part in this process? That is our main concern as a journalist. We always, concerned about our people. What about those? What are the impact of this? We know that it is sham, it is illegitimate, but also why do we bother the election outcome? We already know at gunpoint. We only worry about our own Burmese people in majority who cannot say no to both sides in the conflict. That is our main concern. Okay. Thanks for having us.
But you think there will be people who are courageous enough to not to go out to vote as a sign of defiance?
There is no requirement for voter turnout. Okay. But the army also, they already know the result, but they want to show. It is a sham show. I mean, it is a stage show that, this is the people interested in the army organized election. They just want to show. I think this is good point. If you don't go to vote, I mean, that is on the ground. It is a local authority quietly enforcing. Come on, we know you.
But there's no penalty.
No penalty in legal terms.
But you are watched.
You are watched by these, local level authority that enforcing. We know you are house registration list.
Okay.
If you going to vote or not vote, I'm watching you. Big brother is watching. It is a fear that legally you're not requirement. It is not compulsory voting. So I think let's see it on 28. I can say there will be very low turnout, election turnout at gunpoints, a lot of conflict area cancer. Although in the so-called, the big place like Yangon, Naypyidaw, there will be very low turnout, but people will turn out because of their fear. So you are making a very good point there. Legally, it's not required for compulsory vote, but the fear will drive them to go to the polling station, and then the machine that they got no idea, which one to press.
But who knows? Officially, there could be 90% turnout. Right.
This is always statistic, Right. I mean, there is after Cyclone Nagis in 2008, there was a referendum. They said 92.8% of Myanmar people supported the constitution. And then they calculate Myanmar population with the 60 million. When there is a census, it was only 54 million. So there will be, that kind of number. And it is all about show, sham show, and they will say that, okay, I will not be surprised. They will say it is a 90% of voter turnout, and then, favor to the particular army-backed party. That we already know the result. So this is statistic. It is all about number. It's all about one version of truth. True from the army. They don't allow any other version.
So you cannot underestimate the military junta.
Yeah, they will make sure their narrative, their version of truth is true.
Okay, Kun Srachani, please.
I guess I would start by saying that I want to mention a little bit about the role of the external actors and the international community in this landscape, because I think at this point in time, it seems that the external actors just want to get this election over with for their own self-interested reason. And most ASEAN countries, in terms of how they have react to the possibility of the election on the get-go, is to maintain this strategic ambiguity. So, not really being, obvious in one way or another. And while some of the Western countries have already denounced, just like Dozola mentioned, the election, but that's pretty much it. Not much have gone beyond the statements or speeches, right? We didn't really see any tangible support for the revolution, right? And also another thing, just like both Nati and Kotozola just mentioned about the early voting, the low turnout for me, as a political scientist, for me, is quite interesting, because what it shows is that in almost all voting booths that the junta organized out of the country, right, be it in Thailand or in Korea or different places, nobody really show up. Right, and that is reflecting that the SSPC, that the reincarnation of the SAC.
On this point, don't you think that the junta anticipate that this kind of turnout would be just like it was?
Actually, I don't. I think they did not expect that few people would show up. I think they would think that more people would show up because of one of the most important reasons would be fear, right? They think that they can still control people, but when these people move abroad, they're no longer within the grasp of the junta. What's interesting is it shows that when that influence, right, when that fear is no longer the biggest threat, SSPC can't really command the legitimacy or acceptance from the people, right? But what it can also potentially means, just like you mentioned, they may learn from this experience, and we may see, and that's my personal concern, that we may see heightened coercion and electoral violence in contested area inside Myanmar, when the election happened, right? And we also kind of see that happening already last year, the end of last year. The Irrawaddy have reported that some electoral commissions, people, and also local authorities have gone into Loikor, which is the last stronghold of the SAC in Karenni State, and collecting people data, in a way that would elicit fear from these people, right? We know who you are and we know where you live and things like that. If you don't go vote for us, then you can run into trouble. So things like that, we may see more of this happening on top of the already existing like consistent airstrike and things like that in the contested area. But overall, the reality of this election that we're seeing, this upcoming election, is that it is built upon the blood and tear of the Myanmar people, right? Of the people who can't say no, just like Gotozola just mentioned. And I mean, as a Buddhist myself, I think this is a bad omen. If you want to start, a regime with so much blood and tears of the people, can you really rule it effectively? And in terms of whether this election will lead to more fragmentation or to the nationwide peace, just like the SSPC claim, I think the starting point is that we need not forget that we're talking about a regime that has consistently deployed terrors against civilians, their own people, right? I find it hard to believe that they have any interest in peace and reconciliation. However, what they do want, I think, and also some external actors as well, is stability, right? And which is, in my view, is not mutually inclusive to the concept of peace. You can have stability without peace. There's many ways that you can obtain peace. One of it is through coercion.
But they may have different definition of peace.
Yes, and they may even have different definition of peace as well. But in the end, this election will fall miles short from the conventional understanding of democracy. But I can't help but still think that maybe if it's the stability that they try to achieve, this may have some two key scenarios that may emerge from this election. The stabilizing scenario, right? One of it is once the election is over, the SSPC may try to strike some bilateral relations and deals with the EAOs. Some of the EAOs that would be willing to work with them based on economic interests and things like that. Secondly, another scenario could be brief balkanization, right? Just kind of let things kind of just gradually normalize itself. But my take is that this is not going to be a durable peace or solution because of the natural resource. If you think about it, the heartland Myanmar, or the central Myanmar, doesn't really have that much natural resources compared to the ethnic control areas, right? So in the end, again, economic interest might drive the junta to try and resecure these areas. So these both two scenarios, although quite stabilizing in the short term, it could still lead back to the violence. So no, I don't think we're looking at a way to pathway to peace in any way. I'll end by saying a little bit about Thailand, or what to do way forward in terms of what Thailand can do. I also have a little bit about ASEAN, but I want to really emphasize on Thailand because I think the Thai government needs to reassess its relationship with the junta. Just by simply ask ourselves, right, the Thai government, have they been a good partner for us? Right? And I'm just talking not even from a political perspective, but if we really look at the situation after the coup, scam operations, right? The river contamination, the toxic contamination because of the mining, or even the PM 2.5, Thai government have tried to reach out and work with the Myanmar government, but they have yet to deliver any result or even try to collaborate with Thailand in any of these regards. So if you have really our national interest in mind, right, the answer should be clear, right, that we need to reassess. And we also need to come to realize that the majority of our border is no longer controlled by the Myanmar military. If you can see the image here, it might not be clear on the screen, but just focus on the green, right? The green is the junta control area. And if you look at our border, there's not much green in it anymore, right? What it means is that our border, for the first time in a very long time, is now controlled by the ethnic armed organization and their de facto government, right? And so we need to find a way to work with them for our own national interests, right? These de facto governments, of course, have potentials and willingness to work with us. And if we don't support them, right, it may open doors for another great power intervention as well.
I see. I know with or without the upcoming election, the junta would have been in power anyway. So why do you think they would want this election to take place in the first place?
I think it's mostly the external power, namely China. I think this election will not happen if China does not want it to happen. A lot of it is the Chinese influence and interest that is at play in this election.
You agree with that, Somin?
Yes, definitely. For us, this election is a Chinese sponsor election, Chinese packaged election. Of course, there is a question why China wants such elections, quote unquote, in Myanmar. There is a question. Of course, China doesn't know what to do, apparently, and China, to protect its own interests, at least in the areas controlled by the Myanmar military, is begging and trying its own way of managing its interests by sponsoring this election. And we will have to wait and see what and how China will react after seeing the elections results and after seeing the changes, quote unquote, in Naypyidaw. That is one. Of course, when we look at the country like China, Russia, Belarus, which are supporting this quote unquote elections, the question is, do they have democratic elections in their own countries? No. So that is how we are seeing. So that is one. And secondly, yes, China also have geopolitical interests through Myanmar and in Myanmar within the region. And Myanmar is very strategic in that sense, sitting between South Asia and Southeast Asia, sitting towards Indo-Pacific region, in the Indo-Pacific region. So for China, Myanmar is important. And if you look at the resistant forces, except few who are bordering with China-Myanmar border, most of the resistant forces want Burma-Myanmar to be democratic, Burma-Myanmar to be a federal, genuine federal union. And that I don't think China will like to have it. And plus, of course, the many democracy groups, including independent media, are supporting for democracy and human rights, and supported by the Western countries. That is the fact. So China apparently do not like this in its next door, which is in Myanmar.
I see. Okay, so that means China certainly want to see the junta to continue to be in power.
Yeah, but my question to China, if I have a right to ask, is what they will do, because the election will not solve any issues that we are witnessing today. This quote-unquote election, sham election, will polarize, already polarized, will further polarize the political climate in the country, will not lead to any genuine solutions to the problems and challenges that Burma Myanmar is having. So what will China do after the elections? So that is the big question back to China. If you look at the external actors, for external sort of a support to Burma Myanmar, they are already two very good, even not perfect, but very good foundation already. One is ASEAN, 5 points consensus, cessation of the violence, inclusion, the democratic dialogue. So these are ASEAN 5-point consensus. There is nothing such, so elections in the ASEAN 5-point consensus. And another one is, I remember UN General Secretary Council resolution in 2022, which basically calls for dialogue, which basically called for release of political prisoners, including Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. There was nothing on elections, such elections. So why China or Russia and Belarus are now coming up or supporting the election, which is not in this two major, main important framework for trying to find solutions for Burma's issues? That is my question.
All right, we come back to the question of ASEAN's role later on. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, Mon, please.
Yeah. So some people expect that there will be a transition after the election, similar to what happened in 2010 elections. But actually, this election is run by the regime and winning by the regime. So we cannot expect more than that. And in 2010 election, were backed by the Western government and Western communities. That is why 2010 election was leaning toward democratic transition. But what can we expect from these elections, rather than the full-blown authoritarianism or totalitarianism, whatever you name it? Because also, like Somi Otozola said, China is pulling the string behind. So after the election, the results, like what will happen to Myanmar, and I expect that Myanmar will become the proxy state of China.
Wow.
China will run, all these, heavy industrial projects, infrastructure projects together with the regime. So it's already going on in the, many area in the country. And what can we expect is also that the political system where power is highly centralized, and also democratic norms are dismantled, and then civil liberties are suppressed to maintain control. So, there will be no democracy, I think, by, often through manipulating laws, media, and institutions. And also, they were also moving all the democratic institutions, foundations, to autocratic rule via tactics like sowing division among us, silencing critics. They are doing that, and controlling information. So that is what is happening, already been happening in Myanmar, because they already use the system. They learned from Russia and China to do surveillance on social media or internet online, and also they're checking the kind of civilian data through the software applications used sponsored by China. So these kind of things is already happening. So we only can expect from this election is a transition to the authoritarianism rather than.
It's quite clear that, judging from all the remarks of our speakers so far, the election is meant to be only a means to strengthen the dictatorship
And prolonging
the entrenchment dictatorship. But how do you foresee the system of governance that the country will have after this election?
The system of governance is already
just like it is, inverse.
Yeah, because the junta cannot control the whole country. So like they will centralize power in the area they can control. So our country will be like, I don't know, it might become like a city-states. Some area will controlled by the regime, some area will be controlled by the resistant groups or EAOs and etc. So that is a scenario I'm seeing, after the election, because they cannot control 100%. And the regime will continue using the airstrike to make people fearful and insecurity, and then people will just take refuge in the area the regime control because they don't want to be, bombarded by the regime air force and etc. So they try to find a place where they can live securely but not freely. They will be controlled by the regime. Anyway.
They can even claim to have more legitimacy.
Of course.
Because they can claim that they come from election.
Yeah. That's what they want to. The junta want to show the world.
Okay, Natty, please.
So I'm taking on quite a big topic, which is like the business, and border trades and the younger generation. So from my experience working, talking to people, traveling to Myanmar and the border, many people are asking a much simpler questions. What will this actually change in their lives? You know, like, so today I would like to talk about, you know, beyond the ballot box, what it means for business, border trade, and the young generation, and why it matters not only to Myanmar, but for the region. So but the key idea that I want to leave you with before I start my presentation, which is quite a lengthy presentation, but I'll try to summarize it.
Go ahead.
That stability is no longer the right assumption. Resilience is. So let's start into the presentation. So the first strategic insight is that 2025-2026 election will not, of course, as echo to all these panelists, will not resolve the conflict, and it is designed to produce legitimacy and not consensus. And Myanmar's economy, as I mentioned earlier, have split into two: a formal military-controlled economy, shrinking and sanctioned, and a border-based resistance-linked economy, informal and adaptive. And third, logistics have permanently shifted. As we all know, the collapse of the Myanmar route, once it was responsible for a major trade, it has been forced a long-term rerouting of supply chain because of the closure of the Thai-Myanmar friendship too. Right. And finally, this creates an uncomfortable truth that the opportunity for non-military neutral actors, especially the Thai brands and businesses, has expanded, not because conditions are good, but because alternatives are disappearing. So allow me to, we have seen that these elections will have like 3 phases now. The first one is on December 28th, January 11, and the next one, as they mentioned, would be like the January 25th. Yeah, 2 weeks after the 11th. So hopefully, the outcome will be by the end of January. So this analysis is I work in a marketing company, a Myanmar marketing company. So we together provide this analysis for today's presentation. So we outline 3 scenarios. The first is the discipline status quo, meaning the most likely outcome. As we all know, the military retain controls, conflict continues at lower intensity, and its ceasefires are fragile. Business is possible, but risky and uneven. For the second scenario is fragmentation and feudalism. The Myanmar effectively breaks into semi-autonomous zones run by the armed actors. National system fail, and access depends on local negotiations. And of course, the third scenario, because we don't know what's going to happen in 2026 after the election and throughout the year. So the third is the major shocks such as the junta collapse or internal power struggles trigger the banking failure, the mass displacement, and refugee flows into Thailand. So the takeaway is simple. None of this scenario is nothing close to return to normal, right? So next. So the economic shock waves, Myanmar's fracture does not stay inside its border. Thailand is directly affected in 3 ways. The first is the trade disruption. The Myanmar mass is already broken. So the labor pressure over 6 million now. 6 million Myanmar workers in Thailand face reduced remittances and legal uncertainties. And the energy dependency to Thai electricity security remains tied to gas field inside Myanmar. And for the logistic reality, because the collapse of Myanmar route, the trade forces a permanent pivot. Now the goods going into Myanmar are moved through sea routes, which are slower but safer, northern Laos routes, and air cargo. This is not a temporary workaround. It may be the new map of mainland Southeast Asia for the logistic part. And for the remittance squeeze on Thailand's, I would say 4, but as we all know, it's more than that. The junta news policy, it requires 25% remittance through official channels and 2% income tax on overseas workers. So for Myanmar workers in Thailand, this reduces disposable income and increases the vulnerabilities. For Thailand, it creates a looming risk of an undocumented labor crisis as workers avoid passport renewal or official systems. So this is not than just an economic issue is social stability issues. So of course, because a lot of people do not want to engage with the junta and do not want to participate in the election. This also may cause the uncertainty in the renewal of their passports or their official documents. It's something that Thailand needs to be aware of and maybe seek solutions on how we could, tackle these possible issues. And And for the consumer, so the post-coup Myanmar consumer are highly political. The brand linked to Myanmar faces, I would say, sustained boycott. The neutral or foreign perceived brands, like for example, the Thai FMCG brands are gaining the market share. Importantly, this does not require a public statement, so they tend to keep silent or neutral. These silence and neutrality are strategic assets. This one. So you can see some Thai brands are still winning in the market, and while those linked to the military, their shares are declining, and of course they still continue to run the business, but the people on the ground would prefer the non-military linked brands. So the Thai companies that succeed share common traits. So for example, the localized production, some of the company moved to Myanmar for productions, and flexible logistics, as I mentioned, to rerouting the goods or transporting into Myanmar, political silence to keep neutral, not to express anything political, and focus on the essentials, not aspirations. And to remind everyone that Myanmar is still in the dark digitally. The Facebook, of course, is blocked. The Meta, I would say, is blocked, but have to be accessed via VPNs. And the social commerce dominates, even though they are blocked, but people are still, love Facebook and continue to find ways to engage on Facebook. And of course, but they have other, I would say, messaging platforms. Like in Thailand, we have Line, and there we have Telegram, we have Viber, and Signals are used for communications. And for, I would say, the 21, excuse me, 1 second. So for the playbook, for Q1 2026, action plan is to secure supplies for pre-election and to shift the channels of focus during the elections and adapt the message in terms of brand communications for 2026, pre, during, and post-elections. And for the young people, excuse me, okay. So that's pretty much all for the business part. But the part that I cannot really overlook is the young people, the young generations of Myanmar. I would say perhaps the most important impact is the young people, and what I see on social media or in conversations, or Myanmar youth are not indifferent to politics. They are deeply disillusioned. Many feel that election confirms something painful, that formal political systems no longer includes them, right? As a result, the young people are choosing the migration over participation, digital livelihoods over national careers, and alternative forms of resistance or disengagement. As we see recent with the protests in Mandalay by the democratic activists. And of course, this is dangerous for the long term of Myanmar, because when a generation stops believing that change is possible within the system, they stop investing their future in it. So you can hold an election, but you cannot force people to believe in it, especially from a generation that has already paid a high price for demanding the change. And to conclude my presentation, Myanmar election will not bring democracy as echo in everyone's here on the panel, but it will reshape power, borders, and survival strategies. And for ASEAN, and I will leave that to the experts here for this part. And here, thank you for your,
Yeah. Thank you for your very interesting perspectives on the issues that are mostly overlooked.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we mostly concentrate on the conflicts on the border and the situation inside Myanmar. You mentioned about the young generation of people. I mean, for at least the first 2 years anyway, we saw them on the street almost daily, right?
Yeah.
Opposing the takeover by the military. But where are these people now?
Right now, these people, there are two groups of the people. The people who chose to leave, they have had enough of it. They have had enough of the junta, of the military governance. So they moved to many countries in the world, particularly mainly in Thailand. As we can see right now, especially in Bangkok, we see a growing numbers of Myanmar restaurants, which makes me very happy because I used to live in Myanmar for 6 years, and before there were not many Myanmar restaurants in Bangkok, but now there are a lot of Myanmar people in Bangkok, especially the young generation. You can see the newly established Myanmar restaurants in Bangkok. You see, I would say, I mean, I went to a lot of them because I love food. A lot of young people, they are there. They are there at the newly established Myanmar restaurants. So we see the growing numbers of people living, especially in Bangkok in many areas. For example, Sukhumvit area, Phra Khanong, On Nut, and all the way down to Samrong, like Bering, Udom Suk, Samut Prakan, on that line, and also Ram Kamhang as well. And you see a lot of Myanmar people living there, and of course, like some of them, like engage in education. They come to here to study, to work. Of course, some of them they have the valid visa to work as well. So you see a lot of growing numbers of people in Thailand, especially in Bangkok and other areas such as like Chiang Mai and of course like Mae Sot, like this first group, and the second group is of course like those who chose to stay. So there are, of course, the young people who probably, unfortunately, don't have a chance to leave the country. So they decide to stay in Myanmar, but of course their future is uncertain. So because of the political instability that causes in terms of education, in terms of their jobs, with the struggling economy, finding jobs is not as easy as before. So we can see these two groups of the people.
Okay. And those who have left the country, and especially those who are in Thailand and you know as friends, do they intend to go back someday?
So right now, I mean, I would say it's really sad. They don't really know what the future holds anymore. They're trying hard to study right now. Some of them study languages, some of them take courses, some of them study in the university, but they don't know what's going to happen in the future. They cannot really plan. So actually, recently I recruited one of them to help with my project. So there's I've been here studying for quite some time now, but I don't know what am I gonna do next. I don't know the future anymore. And it's really sad for me to hear all these it's not just him though. A lot of because I interview a lot of them and with pretty much similar situations that they come here to study, but then after that they don't know what's going to happen anymore.
You want to add?
I just want to add and supplement for those who remains in the areas controlled by the junta, because we have two sort of a set or two kinds of the areas in the country today. One area is like Yangon, Mandalay, Naypyidaw, where Myanmar military have a tight control.
Big cities.
Big cities, large population centers. Another one is, as we mentioned, the areas controlled by the different resistance groups where active fighting and active war has been going on as we speak. So for those young people who remain or who have to remain in the areas controlled by the junta, one is very serious for them because of the conscription law, which the Myanmar military. So every youth has to be conscripted by the junta under the law. So one is, it is not just daily life where they find food and they find work, because they have to also be conscripted by the. So many people try to also stay away or try to leave from that conscription. That is one. Which is very serious for many young people. Another one is for those youth who are in the areas where the active fightings are going on. So of course they don't have a job opportunity because airstrike is there every day. Either they are part of the armed resistance movement or what they will do. So this whole generation, millions, in 2020 election, previous election, we had 5,500,000 first-time voters, which is 18 years, 19 years old youth. What are they doing? Their future is really missed. And so I think that is, we are having loss of generation. This generation, young, plus next generation, where the kids, the children cannot go to school, let alone getting the food and medicines.
Yeah. Right. Okay, let's come back to the election.
Okay.
Our Thai Foreign Minister, Kun Sihasak made a very interesting remark a few weeks ago about the election. He admitted that it isn't going to be a free and fair election. And he admitted that he may find it difficult to recognize it. But again, he also referred to the election back in 2010 when the military junta won the election, right? And Thein Sein became president. He said the election back then might not be perfect, but it eventually led to some process of reforms, leading to Aung San Suu Kyi released from house arrest, and then the victory by the NLD in the subsequent polls. And so he is looking at this particular election with some hope. Do you think he's too hopeful or he's too optimistic, Kun Sarajani?
Wow, you gotta throw the tough question on me. Yeah, I think he's very diplomatic and also very, hopeful. I mean, having hope is good, but in a way, it's gotta be based on some sort of, rational thinking of or analysis of the scenario as well. I think the election this year, the dynamic and the way that people think of this election this year is so different than the previous election in Myanmar, right? And the way that people that be in power, the way that they navigate this election is so different, right? So I don't think this election could lead to what happened in the 2020 election. I think it's too different to even compare it.
So, what is your view on that?
Thanks to TPBS. It is about future navigating of Myanmar. About the foreign minister comment, election as an entry point. I mean, my point is, it is a dead end. It is completely different setting from 2010. I mean, now it's 2025. If you look at Myanmar army will never be the same. Because the 2010 army position, they didn't commit any, heinous crime or war crimes or. Nowadays, I mean, there is a recorded crime. There is who is going to take responsibility for those crimes? And Myanmar territorially, it is already fragmented. Only 21% is in Myanmar army. The rest is in various. I mean, there is a competing legitimacy. It is different from resistance. In the past, they fight against central government or military government or Tamil. Now they are establishing their own administration, like your neighbor, like currently IEC, they manage. There is a three layer of, administrative, legislative, and legal issues. And also they call it effectively. They call it the tax. It's not only territorial control. They are establishing, parallel legitimate, administration. So this is completely different. On top of all this war crime and other. So there has to understand, this is not the entry point. I mean, also there is not much space. It is a dead end. That's what I said. Because of the situation change, and also who is going to address, about this war crime? There is a recorder. Even 2010, we were 88. There is a kind of massacre, or 2007 Saffron Revolution, but the scale is very different. If you look at number of political prisoners, those say only 3,000. International outrage. Now it's more than 20,000. All this number, very scary. This conflict, around 100 people already died. How many, there is a kind of record of human crimes, more than 80, more than 10 people died at the same place, the hospital bombing.
100,000.
Yeah, this is all recorded. Who is going to be responsible for, if you talk about reconciliation or transition, you need to address justice, at least minimum form of justice. Who is going to be responsible for this? So I think this is completely different scenario than the situation. Also, we call it point of no return and going too far. Because of, both sides, in the conflict, to be fair, both sides going too far. and it's becoming the point no. I mean, the election will be over very soon, but what will be the future? This is the main topic that we are going to talk. I mean, to be honest, election process will be over end of January. And what is the future? I mean, about the legitimacy, who is going to recognize? What about people, those young people, both in conflict and non-conflict area? What about school? What about public service? What about vaccination for the children? These are the real issues that who is going to address all these issues. I mean, not the military government or not the newly emerged administrative states. So this is another. What about the Thailand? Are you going to recognize the election outcome? Or I mean, that is also another question. I mean, ASEAN itself, unless there is significant move. I mean, there is a high level Myanmar seat is vacant. Not only the ASEAN, UN is represented by the opposition or the resistance group, They're not going to replace unless there is significant some change. So I think the future, if you look at future, it's very, I mean, it is sad to say that very vague, but we cannot compare with our past experience like 2010 or, and it is completely different setting. Somebody need to be accountable and somebody need to, at least, for majority of those 100,000 house burned out, who is going to address about this, At least we need, I mean, justice issues, minimum fauna justice. Otherwise, if we neglect this, very basic human rights fundamental issue, I think we cannot move on. And so I think it is very, we cannot compare with the 2010 to the current. It is completely different setting for the Myanmar situation.
Manmon, on the same question. Any, optimistic views that things will become better?
It's good to be optimistic, but also at the same time, you need to be very careful not to give breathing point for the regime, because 2010 elections transitions. Some people think that is a kind of if it happened like 2010 transition, that would be very hopeful. But actually, 2010 transition also an interval between one regime to another. It's because during that time, from 10 years between 2010 and 2020, the Myanmar Tamador was able to strengthen their power. So if you give another chance in 2025, they will use that chance to strengthen their military power. So we need to be very careful about that. So that's why the prospect of peace after the election is, I don't think there is any prospect for peace, because peace will prevail only where there is justice, equality, and equity. So we don't have anything. I don't see any prospect of peace in Myanmar after the election. And also because it's very obvious that the regime holds the election without the consent of the majority of people. And how many times they have discarded our votes? In 1990, 2010, they used advanced ballot to discard the real votes, and also 2020. So it's, people has lack of trust on the elections. So, that is why, how can our neighbors, and our key players in this regions can help with that? The first and foremost, I'd like to also request the very important thing they should do is not to endorse the regime war crimes or stop the regime's crime against humanity immediately. That is what we need urgently. And the second, they need to convince the regime to release all the political prisoners, including the president, women, and foreign minister, Aung San Suu Kyi. Those are, recognized by the UN, according to UN protocol. So they need to release those, including those, all the political prisoners, and these two particularly. And the third, the neighboring countries and our member states in ASEAN should urge a political dialogue process, with the assistance of our neighbors and also the ASEAN members, including Thailand, China, Bangladesh, and India, and other key players in the region. And so that's the immediate solutions the people want to see, not the election results, because they know that election result cannot do anything better for them. So that's what they are expecting.
What you just outlined, what the international community should do, or the Myanmar's neighbors should do, in asking Myanmar to stop the violence, right?
Yeah.
To release all the pro-democracy figures, including Aung San Suu Kyi. And this is what you just mentioned, that it was part of the ASEAN five-point consensus. And they have been trying for years for the junta to do that. So what makes you hopeful that it will comply with these demands if it is voted back to power?
I think, they need to have a kind of very much persuasive approach to the junta. We need to have a kind of exits for the regime as well, because otherwise, if there is no exits, they won't listen to international community. So that's kind of approach. They should also offer the exit strategy for the regime as well. As at the same time, they should also, what is called, warn against the war crime they are committing. So there will be action. They should come together with the action and exit strategy for the regime. So that is very important things that we need.
Okay. Yeah, right. So this bring us back to the role of ASEAN, Kun Surachani. What else can ASEAN do? First, of course, it's good sign, enough good sign that it doesn't send observer to the election, right? Is that good enough, or more need to be done?
I think more needs to be done, but this is probably the best ASEAN can do, right? Because as we all know, it's all about, the consensus and non-interference principles that have been probably the key reasons why ASEAN stands on Myanmar, since after the coup has always been, really bland, for lack of better words, right? So I think it's the best that we could hope for ASEAN if there's no visionary, leader that would rise up for in ASEAN, system, right? To speak up a little bit more for Myanmar, advocate more for Myanmar. But to be fair, I think for Malaysia, who is now the outgoing chairman of ASEAN, I think they have done such a good job for trying to put stakeholders together and have a conversation and have dialogues. It's a really, really difficult task. If we're being really honest, I've been working with them closely in that regards too, and it's a really unsurmountable assignment for a one-year chairmanship, right? For the Philippines, who will be the incoming chair, I just hope that they continue to do the good work. The gap is, and this may sound a little bit controversial, but the gap that Malaysia was unable to fulfill is to have the junta and the EAOs or the revolution stakeholders to be in the same room, right? Inclusive dialogue could also mean that you got to find a safe space where the junta, whoever is willing to come, need to have the space to talk to the anti-junta groups as well, to kind of maybe just try to have the first step on trust building. I think the third party like ASEAN, with good vision and good intention, can still fill in that space.
What about Thailand in particular? For a while we were seen as having, remember that in early stage after the coup, that we were seen as conducting the so-called quiet diplomacy, which however was seen as leaning toward the junta.
Yeah.
So where exactly is Thailand standing now?
I think the starting point is we need to be clear about our national interest first before we can be that person, before we can be a good and active mediator in the conflict. I think Thailand needs to start from itself, right? Looking inwardly and see what would be the national interest that we want to pursue. Because in the end, from political science perspective, you don't do things for goodwill, right? You don't do things just for humanitarian work. That's just that's for me that's ridiculous. So we need to be strategic as well. Right. So if and when Thailand can establish its own national interest, then that's when it can be in a better position to mediate the conflict in Myanmar. If not, we're not going to be a good fit.
Natty, what is expectation of the business community?
In terms of the business, in terms of the election, or in
Yeah.
So, I mean, in Myanmar or in Thailand, I have to be clear?
Both, I mean, yeah.
Both, okay. The expectation for the business community after the elections. So, I would say, as I mentioned, there are two groups of businesses. So, I don't think they expect anything different, but hopefully for those who don't have tied with the military, so they probably hope that like there would be some certainties, but of course we cannot expect that, or we cannot hope for that. But of course there would be some certainty in the policies or in the regulations that would help, of course, like foster that businesses, especially for the border trade. But having said that, it seems impossible to expect certainty from the military government. So I think like they probably expect not to be worse, the situation not to be worse, because it's already impacting a lot of businesses, Thai businesses as well for the border closure. The restrictions of goods transporting to Myanmar that hurt Thai businesses. Like there are many restricted items that cannot be sent to Myanmar anymore, and hurting a lot of businesses, communities in Thailand. Yeah.
That's it. So I mean, we know that there are a lot of flashpoints in this world right now. Do you have a feeling that Myanmar is being slowly forgotten by the world?
I think generally Burma Myanmar is forgotten for different reasons. Of course, I mean, even before all this, there were parallel issues like Middle East, Gaza, then Ukraine. So there are issues, and right now Cambodia, Thailand. So generally, but still it is alive. It is not dead. It's still alive. I mean, we are talking today thanks to the Thai PBS for bringing up the issue, one of the important issues. But I must say the struggle and the resilience of the peoples in the country and outside the country have been very steadfast. All this resistance movement that we are talking about, different groups, are largely homegrown. Of course, there are a little bit of moral, political support, and from time to time, international media coverage, whatever the best they could. But the movement, the spirit, particularly by the young people, who are now leading who are a part of the forefront of these movements against the Myanmar military dictatorship. I think we should recognize, and they are probably the future of what we are talking about. For example, what will happen after this? Okay, we know that this election will not solve anything. This election will not lead to democracy. But what will happen? Yes, there are many things also. On the other hand, we should recognize it. There are local governance taking place in different parts of the country where areas are liberated by the different groups. For example, Sagaing government is coming up, local governance. And there is a currently in this part of the border where the local governance by the young people. So I think Myanmar, the international community, I mean, to be honest, with this thought of something will be better with this election by the neighboring countries, I would not blame, I mean, to be honest, I would not blame or put things on the governments or neighboring countries, because Burma, Myanmar in the last many years has been problematic. But now it is more than problem, it is a burden for many neighboring countries. That is the fact. Drugs are coming across the border to India or Bangladesh or to Thailand. There's all these scams which is taking root, and as we are facing serious issue from camps is in Myanmar, in Burma. So Burma, Myanmar, there is a wish list that okay, something can come up, but that unfortunately that wish list of something can be better will remain as wish list. The reality is I would really recognize the neighboring governments and international community to be more pragmatic, to be more realistic, because yes, what happened, like for example Thailand, right across your border, Nimon, there are areas where you could do things, you could do even trade. Of course, the issue is always these airstrikes of the junta, very brutal airstrikes. That has to be stopped by one way or another. Then if there is no airstrike, I mean, we're not talking of ceasefire, we are not talking of peace, we are talking of just no airstrikes, then there can be trade, there can be business, at least across the border between Bangladesh and Arakan, between India and Chin and Sagai. I think they are really the plus education, plus humanitarian aid. In Myanmar, we have 64 million populations. More than 20 million populations in Myanmar are in need of just basic food and medicine. That I think international community can do, should be doing across the border, right to the people.
So why do you think the junta continues to conduct airstrikes against all these various ethnic groups and the People Defense Force on the border? They should be focusing on the election, right? So why are they conducting these airstrikes?
I mean, it's again fear, because of the mainly area, those areas that they lost control. So they just want, for example, Rakhine. This is ironic that in Yangon, our capital, majority Rakhine not in Yangon, because of the conflict in Rakhine state. AA control most of the, there is a 17 township and 14 in their hand. But the people already leave. Because of this airstrike and instability and insecurity, it is deliberate. So that's why, it is about a kind of swaying fear that if you are not, submitted to the authority, this is what you get. Airstrike does nothing, because the ground battle are also losing. That's what I mean. Burmese army will never be the same. Because it is a young people, Gen Z, Generation Z, they pick up the guns, homemade gun. They were joking that how can they defeat with the, we are Russia trained, Su-35 with the homemade gun. Look at the territorial control. Because of these young people, it is the DYI young people able to, challenge these authorities. So army also very paranoid. So all they can do is, all right, let's do the airstrike. Let's show their force and do submission. Also, especially they are putting more before the election, because during the election they need their security, so they need to withdraw. But they were sent there because there is no anti-aircraft in the resistance control area, or and there is no way that you can shut down the plane. But the army will continue. Also, they want to divide people and resistance group. If you accept, resistance in your area, this is what you get. That is also they deliberately target and not legitimate, like schools, hospitals, refugee camps. All they are target. It is not legit. It is war crime, but they deliberately doing it. So I don't think they were. I mean, the more they lost, also it showed the sign that they are very paranoid. The more they lost control, the more they were sure of their force. But that will be again, there will be consequences about legitimizing election. What about this war crime? Who is going to address this? Because these are all recorded. I mean, it's not like before, And also, I think Gen Z, they're not going to give up easily. That's 5 years ago. They have nothing. Hold my bones. And no big superpower country supported the resistance group. It is the DIY, do-it-yourself revolution. And, but the Chinese, on the other hand, they supported the Burmese army territorially, like Northern Shan State, Lasho, ethnic control, PDF, the young people, they give a lot of life. But the Chinese have returned for the sake of business or border trade. They want to resume the trade. So that is a superpower involved. It is not domestic politics issue. So it is a kind of Burma domestic issue, become the international player involved. And so that, but I don't see these young people going to give up in the near future. And also, I mean, they will say that we would start the revolution, not because we expected somebody to support us. We will continue, but don't disturb it. That is the airstrike. They are all Russia-made or Chinese-made plane. And then they continue supplying. Su-30 is very high generation, jet fighter. Bomb in the hospital, bomb in the school, or refugee camp. What is the point? But they deliberately doing it. But I don't think, that kind of fear, that kind of show of force will stop this, young Gen Z who want to change or who really want to put on up federal democracy will not easily give up.
Okay. All right. If we have questions from our audience online, please pass them on. All right. So whether you like it or not, the election will take place anyway. And so what can members of the international community do to ensure that the election will not be just another attempt in prolonging the junta hold on to power, and it would lead to some kind of reform process or some kind of national reconciliation? If you have a request to the world community.
Yeah, that the first thing they have to do is to make sure that the legitimacy, they bring out legitimacy of the people. I mean, legitimacy of people, I mean that they have an election result in 2020, and then there's still the elected government is being detained in the prison. So international community should ensure that those people should be released first, because that's also important. People like Aung San Suu Kyi or U Win Myint, they can, convince. I mean, like the way people are doing. I mean, they can intervene, political dialogue. I mean, they can initiate the political dialogue, because right now, so no one's know where these people, especially Aung San Suu Kyi, is being detained, including her son, doesn't know. So the junta has kind of responsibility to release information related to her. So that's very important, because her role is there. Even though she is not on site, her influence it's enormous. Just last week, the what is called underground group protests in the downtown Yangon, just opening the Bluetooth speaker with her speech. So the police got mad about that, so by hearing her voices, her speeches, even though she's not on site. Right. So her influence is enormous. So gender should use her to make the proper political transition. Otherwise, I don't think.
What's the need to release her?
Release her. That's what international community should start. That process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Oh, they can save life. Basically, I mean, it is nothing new in the ASEAN 5-point consensus. It's about humanitarian assistance. They need to recognize it is a not only state. The realist notion of states, and in Myanmar there are many states, state within state. At first, they have to recognize other, the local administrator, newly emerged state, to effectively deliver humanitarian aid. I mean, this is the ASEAN, one of the 5-point consensus.
That's right.
They can save life, and also this is not domestic Burmese political problem, because of China, Russia, Belarus involved. China provide all the psychological warfare and train Myanmar army to conduct the digital psychological warfare. Chinese physically provide the firewall, and also the election is made in China election. So this is, Russia want Myanmar as the Asian Belarus. They are proxy. So there are a lot of other superpower international involved. By the way, Russia and China, they undermine all the international, democratic movement anyway. If you look at the Shanghai SOC and the Shanghai Cooperation, who are the attackers? It was North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and Russia, and China. All these, bad guys gathering together. So there is a new global paradigm happening. Myanmar, Burma is geopolitically in very important position. That's when Russia also wanted. They want the deep seaport, that Thailand, Thai Italian, the way seaport is. Now they are going to do the deep seaport, and the Chinese physically involved. So this is not domestic issues. So at least, ASEAN or international community, what immediately they should do, save life. Otherwise, we would think they are the paper tiger. They do nothing. They just like NATO, no action talk only. Otherwise, we were going to regard them as no action talk only. But they can at least, a kind of safe life. They can start immediately with the ASEAN partner or with their own, and then with their different channel. State-centered approach no longer relevant to Myanmar current political setting. There are many state within state. You have to recognize, you have to make the deed, you have to start formulating, saving the life. This is what I will be proposing to the Indonesian.
As far as the situation in Myanmar is concerned, ASEAN seems to have reached the point you just mentioned. I mean, talk only, no action. Okay, construction, same question as to what the world community should do or should avoid doing so that it won't play a part in recognizing the legitimization of the junta.
Yes, so definitely I agree with all the panelists that they have spoke already. We can't legitimize this election, not even a silver of indication. Even remaining silent means that you're complicit or already, giving the legitimacy to the upcoming election, and that's a big no-no. We should not do that at all. International community or ASEAN both alike, right? The time of strategic ambiguity is over because the mixed signal that the international community have been given to the situation is not useful for Myanmar. It's quite harmful actually because you're hurting the people, right? And I think secondly, for short-term, humanitarian assistance is what needed, not words, right? The action it's what's needed. I think we could also even start at national level for the like-minded communities of countries to start doing things like sanctions, right? Economic sanctions of the junta and their associates, things like that. Or for ASEAN level, wild thoughts. I don't think ASEAN will ever get to that point. But considering the suspension of membership of Myanmar until it gets its act together, right? Until it fulfills the demands of 5-point consensus, things like that could really probably bring some better outcome than how the things are right now. And I think I want to also supplement a little bit about the importance for Thailand particularly, to recognize the role of the de facto, the emerging government along the border. Because just to give you an example of to contrast the reaction of the SAC, right, and the emerging entity like the Karani IEC in terms of things very non-political like environmental protection. As you know in the news, the water contamination from mining, the rare earth mining activities have been a big issue in Thailand, right, impacting a lot of people, including even people in the Mekong sub-region too, right? Thailand have sent several letters to Myanmar government asking what they can do about the issue addressing the rare earth mining in Chan State particularly. And the reply has always been, oh, those are illegal mines, right? It's not registered with us, so we can't do anything, right? On the other hand, when you look to the Karani IEC, right away, a few weeks ago, there's an allegation that mining in Karani State in Mochi Township, which is the antimony mining, have created water contamination in Salween River. Right away, the IEC actually reached out to me to find a way to really prove whether the mines in their area are actually impacting the water. And what we did was I reached out to researchers at the Chiang Mai University to organize a training for them to collect water samples, and they will do that in the next few days to collect the water sample from inside Karani State, so that we will have a solid, concrete evidence of whether or not the mining in the Karani State actually have impact in Salween River. So just to show you the level of willingness to work with Thailand, it's quite different, the junta compared to the emerging governments.
Okay, there's some questions from our online audiences. One question is about the role of China. I mean, the question is, given the role of China, how will that impact Thailand? Which sectors in particular? Quite a broad questions, but if China is really, giving full support to the elections and the continuation of the dictatorship there, I think the question is probably, is related to that. So what would that mean in long term then?
Yes, China is elephant in the room, very powerful, of course, at least regional superpower, and very important for countries like Burma, Myanmar, from all aspects, geopolitical aspects, business aspects, security, safety of the lives, including these scams that we are witnessing very badly. Of course, I think there are issues in the region where China and the West, particularly the US, are sort of contentious to each other. But when it comes to Myanmar, I think China has gone beyond the line in that sense that China is backing the side, backing the Myanmar military, and particularly this election, quote-unquote election, which will not solve issues. So in a football match, I think you know there is a Rule 11 in a soccer football match, Rule 11, which is offside rule. So China has gone that, because in the international community, there is a UN General Security Council resolution in 2022, and then there is even though not perfect, there is a ASEAN 5 points consensus where there is nothing mentioned about elections, and China has gone to that stage of Rule 11 and got offside rule, where supporting the elections. So China has to be very careful of not. I mean, we are all in this sort of a global rule-based order, and you cannot just gone beyond that. So I would say China is a big elephant, and of course, again, I repeat my question back to China: what will you do after the elections, where there will be no change unless May Online, current commander-in-chief and current acting president and current chairman of the Security Council, is changed, or is something happened to him and to the military, or within the changes? Unless that, what will China do? That is a question to the big elephant in the room.
And Thailand should also be concerned as an immediate neighbor of Myanmar.
Thailand,
right?
Yes.
All right. Of course, we all know that the junta is in complete control of the country, except in areas that they still have problem trying to control, right? But are there concerns about security on the election days? Would any groups of people try to disrupt the election in any way?
It's happening,
I think,
right?
it is already happening. Because, some constituencies are under curfews. I can't even imagine how can you organize election in a place that under curfews, like Chin State on the India border, only 2 townships. But the candidate has to hide their identity because of the resistance. Chin resistance said, we don't want any election in our control area. If you collaborate, we will punish you. That is also they make the public statement. That's why people are like sandwiched in between these two conflict. So I think they are very concerned. Another reason they are increasing bombing before the election is to this concern. They will withdraw most of the security force to guard there. That's why they are kind of punishing those areas that they cannot control. So I'm sure I don't want to see election-related violence, but it is inevitable in some area because it is a both side making law. Army is making election protection and preventing law. If you criticize election, you go to jail to 3 years to life sentence. Resistance recently endorsed a law. If you support an election, 6 months to 10 years. So then some people like public servants at gunpoint, how are you going to deal with that? Are they collaborators? So there are a lot more problems than answering about elections. So my main concern is election-related violence, especially in those, the 37% of contested area, there is some election happening. Because like 21%, they may consider very secure, but I stay doubted. And like 42%, they can say a lot of election, but still some of the area is under curfew and they want an election. They just want to sham show, I don't know why they, dying for this, the election. So I think that is one of the key concerns that nobody can. I hope, there will be no violence on election day because at the end, violence, it is the people that suffer. When the two buffalo crash, we said the crash has to suffer. So I think that is one of our main concern about election. Main concern about all the election candidates at the moment. There are 5,000 more than 5,000 registered candidates. They all concerned. I mean, we said, even the pre-election education, they said don't wear the uniform to come and get the training because they cannot guarantee the election. Because on the way you will get arrested, or on the way back you will get arrested. Then you get the training how to use the election voting machine. This is the real situation on the ground. I got no clue that why they are, dying for this, election. But I think mean nothing. But this is one of the key concerns about the security concern on the election day, not only the 28, 11, 25. Because everybody, there is a actual territorial control or administrative control. Both sides has a law, legally punishable law that targeting the people. So I think that is our main concern. I hope it's not going to be bloody election on the election day.
So the latest that you know, how many parties are running in the election?
57.
57.
And
But there is a big but. Those parties which won the elections in 2020, except the military-backed USDP party, like for example, the party like Nationally for Democracy, which won landslide victory, and Shan Nationally for Democracy party, they are not contesting, and they are not allowed to, under their law, election law, to participate in the election. That should not overlook, because this election is not the election. This is just one-sided, state-managed, whatever they come along having had, and the result is already out.
I see. And exactly how much of the territory that will be seeing the elections, in what is the percentage of the constituencies that will see elections?
For the military council, that military junta, they have 3 dates. 28 December, first phase, and then 11 January, and they said after 2 weeks, that means 25th January. Then they said they acknowledge, first of all, that they are not going to have elections in the whole country. This is not nationwide. But based on the figures that we know, who rule, who control, who contest in certain areas, they will have less than 40% of the country's territories where they will try to have elections in this election. But they will try. We'll have to wait and see how things will. Secondly, it is not the elections where people are able to vote or people freely, because there are fears and all these coercions, and a large populations, including Rohingya populations, who more than a million population in Bangladesh, who have to leave the country after 2017, are not there at all. And the Burmese diaspora, we have millions of Burmese diaspora, as colleague panelist has said, a few hundreds, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 have done in the advanced voting in the 50 overseas polling stations in the last few days. Only 4,000-5,000 maximum, have voted. And there are many millions of diaspora people living outside the country, including millions of Burmese living in Thailand.
Another question concerning the role of China. I think the question is that what might the next so-called peace process in Myanmar look like in the current political and military context, of course in connection with the election as well. And to what, I think that this is the question, to what extent is China likely to dominate or even monopolize a reconfigured version of the nationwide ceasefire agreement? Will China be able to play a role in that area, ceasefire?
I think China will play. China will emphasize on peace process with security approach, because they only highlight on that, not reconciliation, because they will only aim for the negative peace, not a positive peace. So there will be no dialogue, there will be no cooperation among each other, there will be no change of structural violence. Those are stay going on. Those will be stay going on. So I think China role in peace process, I cannot see any China role. They were just, like.
Okay. They're happy with the current status quo, right?
Yeah,
And they want this to continue.
That will be,
Okay.
ongoing.
Recently, there was a peace conference in April. It was sponsored by China and organized by, not only election is made in China, no, peace is also made in China, peace. There was a NCA, Nationwide Ceasefire Agreement, only 7 groups left. Even the biggest one like SSA, Shan, they were not there. We were very surprised. But Chinese really want to, show that there is some process in place.
All right.
Doesn't matter, whether it was a Myanmar narrative organized peace forum. But very, they're not significant participant. Even out of 7, only 6 were there. And nobody really interested or addressed the issues. So that is a pseudo peace that, Chinese will continue a kind of, not inclusive, the selective peace process that, because they want the northern part of northern area, including Lashu, Hua, Kokan, and that area to be stabilized because they want to resume the development project in that area. And also very seriously, like you are concerned, they are going to have an Ayeyarwady River Dams project already signed. So China pushing Myanmar to some kind of, so-called pseudo peace for the development, sacred development, pave way for the development. They will insist those areas already peace, and then they will resume all of their road and bed and the development project. That is their main concern. They don't really, but also they play quite dangerous game, like pipeline. So far nobody touching it. It's across quite a lot of resistance control area, from Chaokyu all the way to Yunnan, along the way. Only army control pocket. So far I don't think resistance never touch it. But if China is clearly back in the Burmese army, nobody can guarantee that kind of their Chinese business interest. I hope they're not. I don't like any civilian or other target, but it will be inevitable. They are playing very dangerous game. If the resistance passive, they are with the army, and there is no way that they will continue back in the army. Then there will be consequences too. I think they should be worried. Also, another one is about the racial issue. I don't want anti-Chinese sentiment. There are sizable Chinese population. We need to distinguish Chinese government and Chinese people. There are quite a lot of Chinese population in Myanmar. And one day there was a 1027 conflict. Army accused those wrong drivers are Chinese. And there was a protest in Mandalay, the nationalist protest, anti-Chinese sentiment. It is quite dangerous. I don't know how can they trust the Burmese army. They will use this racial card whenever there is political crisis. So the Chinese are playing quite a dangerous game, and betting on a very unstable follower. So I think they have to consider, for the long term. I don't want to see that kind of disturbance in some of the Chinese interests in Myanmar.
Okay. All right, it looks like we seem to have a consensus among our friends today that there isn't much hope for any real changes after the election, right? But is there any optimistic note that we can end with this conversation from any of you?
Yes, there is a hope. We should not lose hope.
Okay.
First of all, this struggle, resistance, resilience is there. For years, and it will be there for democratic federal union. It is not perfect, but there are attempts, serious attempts to get everyone sort of a united, live together, work together. That has been going on different levels. That is a very good hope for us. Very positive. We know the consequences of being divided, and so we should be united. Yes, we have differences, but we should be united, and we should make constant efforts to get united. That is one. Secondly, even when we talk of China, I'm sorry to name one particular country because that is very important to mention.
Elephant in the room.
Yes, we have to mention.
Dragon
but
in the
even China, we are not losing hope. Like for example, if China works with international community, the rest of the international community, including neighboring countries like India, Bangladesh, Thailand, to find solution rather than supporting one side of the problems or one side of the issue. Because today Myanmar has emerging stakeholders, that is the fact. There is a current, the self-determination, local governance, all are taking place. So China should work. If China being a big country and rich resources, I think that we should not lose hope that there can be, but provided that China and Myanmar military change its own way. But there is a very slim, a very small window that they will change by themselves. But we all together have to put things
pressure from outside could help.
Pressure from. So that I think should be very positive. And I think another one is to be realistic, more pragmatic, working with the emerging stakeholders. Thailand working with Karen and Karani and Mon, and India working with Chin and Sagain and Arakan, Bangladesh working with Arakan and Rohingya. So I think that is also more realistic. Okay. Why? Working with, it's not just dividing. It is working with all these stakeholders so that there is a path or a way for future democratic federal union of Burma, Myanmar.
Okay, thank you. So any hopeful note from you?
I think also I like to use the term, call it parallel state building. If our neighboring countries, not only China, also Thailand, Laos or India, Bangladesh, if they can support these kind of parallel state buildings in the different regions, starting from the bottom up, looking at the people on the ground, grassroots on the ground, and trying to help them, at least with the humanitarian assistance, and also helping them in a very ethical way. That might be hopeful for the Burma or Myanmar become a kind of a country with a kind of hopeful situation. Otherwise, the election will push Myanmar become a lawless country. If Myanmar become a lawless country, all the neighboring countries will get trouble with that as well. You have to take burdens of Myanmar, each and every country, neighboring countries. So that in order to deal with that, you have to be very careful not to endorse the regime's wrongdoing. That's an important message I would like to give it to.
What was our hope?
Change is inevitable. Change okay. Because Burmese people will not give up. Or young people will not give up. There is desire for change for very long. Army will not be there for forever. But we are not fighting the Japanese or British. They have nowhere to go as well. They are Burmese as well at the end. And we would like to see our neighbor, especially Thailand, India, China, Bangladesh, Laos, as a change facilitator, not a disturbance. I mean, we don't want to see. I mean, we are and we quite fine with our own domestic resistance on the right way. So I think we like to see. I mean, I'm very positive about change. It is unstoppable. And I'm very sure Myanmar will never be the same, and there will be change. And at this very international conflict set in, this is also very unfortunate at the moment. But at the same time, we like to see both neighboring country, ASEAN, as a change facilitator for the long term, coexist. And I am very positive. I have never doubted that. Burma will be stuck like that forever. Okay. There will be change. Yeah,
remember also people want genuine change, not the cosmetic change. Okay. So we need to be aware of that. We need a real change.
Please.
Yeah.
Since you insist that I have to end on a positive note, I guess my hope is, Thailand will also have a new government. Soon. So hopefully that new incoming government, whoever that is, can be more pragmatic in their approach on Myanmar. You can be on any end of the spectrum for a government to be pragmatic. I think that's clear. So when the new government comes in and they realize that the military government of Myanmar is not a good partner, right? And working with them is not really making us any safer at the border or serving our national interests, then there can be change. And I think that positive change can start from there.
Okay, Natty?
To add to Kunsurashini, that I mean, as a civilian, a normal person, I would say I would love, as someone who's been following the news about Myanmar for a very long time, I would love to see Thailand has a long-term approach on Myanmar. Not just like you see the photo of the foreign ministers engaging with the junta over, but you never see like really the photo of our foreign ministers engaging with the people or the resilience. That is something that I really want to see, recognizing the resilience, recognizing the people, and also in the big picture, not just the government, adding on to of course we want to see the new government, but we want to see really like Thailand's like being serious about tackling, the approach with Myanmar in all aspects though, not just business, not just political affairs, not just scams operation or whatever, but there are many issues that needs a long-term planning toward Myanmar that I have not yet seen, or maybe other partners have seen, but I have not yet seen as a person. Our seriousness in taking up like to be the leader or to even stepping up our position in navigating or approaching Myanmar. I really would love to see this. And also another point that I would love to see is like for especially Thai media, to recognizing the Myanmar people resilience, or the Thai society to, I would say, have less negative perception toward Myanmar people and look at Myanmar people as our friends, and we're human, we're equals, and would love to see more like harmonious society between like Thailand and Myanmar.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much for your very insightful into what the future of Myanmar looks like. It may not be that promising, but at least we can manage to end the conversation on some hopeful note, some expectations. So we wish you all the best anyway.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks for the TVBS.
Thank you very much
you.
for your joining the conversation, and thanks our online audience for watching. So all the best to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ